Hey everybody, this is Gaynor Meilke, and this is the Conscious Success Plan where we are upskilling for life. And life in our model is love, identity, family, and enterprise. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about lying. So this is something that actually can cut across all areas of the life model. But before I begin, I should introduce myself. I'm Gaynor Meilke. I am a certified executive coach, a certified conscious parenting coach, and conscious life coach, and a business owner who has a marketing and advertising agency, as well as an executive coaching business, Plan C training. So today I wanted to talk about lying, as I said, and everybody has probably lied at some point in their life. We do it to save face. We do it when we're children often because we don't know what else to do. And we do it to manipulate reality when we feel like it's going to benefit us. Of course, the question is always, does it really benefit us and does it benefit us in the long term? Usually not. Now, can it benefit another person in the long term? If you're trying to spare somebody's feelings and you want to tell a white lie, is that okay? Versus, a bigger lie that is truly deceptive. So when we think about love, I've encountered a lot of lying in my love life, I have to admit. And I think that it actually seems to be very common. And I'll give an example, a couple of examples. Actually, one, I met somebody for the first time to have a coffee, and they were a medical professional. And they didn't lie about that. But what they lied about was how they came to leave one job and go to another. And so, all the ins and outs of that aren't really important, but I was able to verify this with public records of their licensing and uh, some of the professional actions that were taken against them as part of this, licensing requirements in the state. So, the story is there online documented because it has to be. They're a professional provider of public health services. So they told me a version of a story that I didn't even ask for, and it was completely different than what I was able to verify online. So what do you do in that situation? To me, it's a deal breaker because why am I going to invest in somebody who's already lying? And it's a pretty serious lie. I mean, it was pretty serious. So from my perspective, that kind of cancels out the opportunity there. But if somebody lied, about whether they liked what I was wearing for a date, okay, that's all right, as long as they don't, I guess, hold it against me later. Or, if I just wanted to, you know, not go somewhere with somebody at a certain time and we haven't already made plans, I might just say that I'm having, a different appointment at that time. And I don't think that that's unfair. Where lying gets us into trouble is one where we feel a compulsive need to lie. We're lying to cover up something that will harm another person or institution. And it can also be very harmful if we lie to children and teach them that that's the way that we should act. So there's lots of reasons, as we know, that we shouldn't lie. But it seems to me that lying is on the upswing, and I haven't found any scientific data yet to support that. But there's a lot of lying going on, and I think that if we're trying to be consciously successful, it's, the old adage, cheaters never prosper. So, in love, lying is never a good thing. And it's part of the reason why people feel betrayed when they are lied to, especially, if it comes to infidelity or about finances, you know, kind of having a double life, all of those things. Now, when it comes to betrayal, you can also have a self-betrayal in the identity piece where you might lie to yourself about, you know, how much you ate, in terms of cookies or something like that. Not too serious, but if you're actually lying to yourself to avoid facing a serious reality, like perhaps you have an illness or you don't want to believe that your spouse is not honest with you or that there's something wrong with what your child is doing, we might have a self-betrayal that can cross over into family as well. So we've talked about, spouses, but with children, what do you do if a child lies? Oftentimes, you know, we want to not be harsh with them, but to sit down and understand why they're not telling the truth. If you are acting with anger when they do try to communicate with you, they might feel like they need to hide it, or if they feel ashamed of what they've done, it's important to kind of bring the light out for them by being, compassionate with them and talking about the consequences of not telling the truth, especially when, it might be a small lie, but if they continue to lie, they might withhold important information and then you won't be able to help them as much. So I know I've always told my daughter that it's better to be honest no matter what it is, because then we can help you figure it out. So lying in children can be a serious issue, and that's where, conscious parenting, you can look at the parenting map with by Dr. Shafali, or you can book a time with me to talk that through. And then, of course, in business. Unfortunately, there's a lot of lying that goes on, either with credentials, so people lying about how much experience they have or where they worked. Um, if you're not skilled, if you're a business owner and you don't have an HR department, that can be an issue. Now, in the age of AI, people can also make things up. And of course, not everybody um, is honest when they do a handshake deal or even when they have a contract. I know I've had clients that we have a contract, everything's there in black and white, and they're still trying to tell me that it's not that way. And I'm like, but it is that way. And, fabricating different things. So, you have to think about what's your consciousness in terms of how you want to live with integrity, as well as the long and short term weight and impact of your lies. And some people with personality disorders can also not stop themselves from lying. And so they need some help with that, especially if it's hurting other people. So, an interesting take on truths and how we should navigate truths in our lives. And if somebody is lying, you should one, take note of it. If it's a continuing relationship and a continuing pattern, you're going to need to address it if it's having serious harm, but also just asking questions about, are you sure about that? Because I remember it a different way. And of course, that can lead us into, is this person trying to use lying to manipulate you and gaslight you? Or is it simply that maybe they're embarrassed or ashamed of something for some reason? I know I also dated somebody who was embarrassed that they had been married to their former spouse twice. And so they didn't bring it up to me. I didn't think to ask that, but now, of course, I have a greater understanding of all the questions that I should ask when I potentially meet a date, and I'll probably do a video on that as well. But um, it didn't come out until we were talking with a friend of theirs, and they mentioned it, and then realized that he'd never told me. And it was a few months into our relationship, and he said he just didn't know how to bring it up. And that's I wasn't too upset about it, but it made me pause. And then it became evident that he had a um, not strong relationship with the truth in other areas. So I'm laughing about it, but it's sort of like this past experience with the medical professional. You know, people are going to find out one way or the other. So I believe that honesty up front is the best policy. And I think that if you're trying to be consciously successful and build a bridge to better, you can't build a bridge to strong relationships and success if it's on shaky ground when it comes to integrity and telling the truth. So I don't like to sound like preachy and moralistic, but I do believe that if we want a better society and a better place to operate businesses and have a family and enjoy life, let's all just be honest. And if we need help with why we don't want to tell the truth, there's a lot of resources out there, including Plan C training. Confidentially, we can help you, put you in touch if you need to see a therapist or medical professional so that you can feel good about your relationship with the truth and move forward uh, in a harmonious way with all parts of your life.